All right, now it's time to get out of the way and allow the speakers come do their thing. And like I said, we have two speakers today, great speakers, who will be telling us about storytelling. Our first one is Adedoyi Jayesimi, who is a communications advisor. She's a corporate trainer and co-founder of the Comms Avenue. Comms Avenue is a Pan-African platform for connecting thousands of communication professionals across 35 African countries. So she has reached that much. Adedoyin has over a decade's experience, and she's very, very passionate about what she does, and that is empowering African communicators to deliver not just any kind of interventions, but impact-driven. About Adedoyin, she has executed projects for both local and international organizations, like GIZ Nigeria, MasterCard Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, so you know that she's not a girl. Adedoyin is a chartered PR practitioner, and she holds a master's degree in corporate and marketing communications from IE Business School. Now, Adedoyin will be delving into an overview of storytelling, and she's going to be giving us tips for writing compelling storytelling, for writing compelling stories, rather. So you want to grab your notebook and your pen and listen to Adedoyin. Right after Adedoyin, we're going to be having Omoye Oriagan, who is our very own senior branding and communications executive at ACT Foundation. Omoye, or Omiose, as I call her, is very passionate about what she does. She's a communication strategist, and she likes to be recognized or to be known as a communicator for change and impact, because that is what she is. She's committed to driving impact, and she has delivered communications and branding solutions to impact leaders, championing meaningful conversations around Africa. She also serves on the Youth Advisory Board of Advocates for Health and Rights of Women and Youth Initiative. Just so you know that she's an expatriate. She recently, debuted her own stage play, which is called Omiose, A True Love Story. I watched that story and I can tell you that it was a banger. Omoye holds a bachelor's and master's degree, all in mass communication. So you can see that she is great at what she does from the University of Lagos. And of course, she has garnered certifications from other institutes like Pan Atlantic University. Omoye has been on radio, she has been on other media platforms, and yeah, she is going to be telling us more about storytelling. She'll be addressing some of the challenges she has noticed in the ecosystem, and there will also be case studies that she'll be addressing. So you want to stick around for that. Okay, so right about now, I'm going to hand over to Adedoyi Jayesimi to start off the session. Adedoyi, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Good morning, Abiodun. Good morning to the team. Trust you're fine. I was sending a message to the host if I could be a co-host so that I'm able to share and navigate as easily as possible. Okay.
I'm also done. I will just join training now.
So host, if you can make me a co-host already. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So it's also easy to, yes. Please confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, all right. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much. Good morning again, everyone, or good afternoon. Some of you are already in the afternoon because I see we have people from Uganda, Kenya, New York. It's a really diverse group. I'm speaking to you today on the topic of storytelling, and as Abiodun said, it's going to be an overview because I can teach on this for days, but my hope is that at the end of this session, you become a bit more in the work that before the session started, one of the people being interviewed in the podcast talked about how stories help to connect people to the work that is being done. And that's essentially the power of storytelling. You can tell me facts and figures about the incredible work that you're doing. And I believe all of you are doing incredible work that touches on different causes, different SDGs, whether it's in terms of gender, in terms of poverty. But the truth is that if you're 25, also remember hard facts, not because people are not intelligent, but the way that our brain is wired. Stories connect, we assimilate stories better, we diffuse or dissect information better when it comes in story form. And so that's why when somebody tells you a story and brings out a lesson, more often than not, you're able to remember that lesson because you remember that story. Do we agree? Sometimes when you're in a lecture, they've told you the hard facts, all of those things. If I ask you, okay, what was the statistic that the teacher quoted? Some of you may start scratching your head and you wouldn't remember. But if that teacher told you a story about that statistic, you're more likely to remember it. So today we're going to be speaking on how to amplify your organization's voice using storytelling. But I want to start off by what is in a story? And so I want to start by asking, and please type in the chat, what is your favorite story from childhood? One that has never left you, one story that you just remember and you just love, and it's a story from your childhood. And we have many, many stories, whether it's a book, whether it's a movie that you watched. What story? Okay, so Aquila and the Bee, Abida says, yes, Goldilocks, clear out. Man, that's a real throwback. I don't think I've heard I've heard Goldilocks in a while. The Tortoise and the Pig, David and Goliath, thank you to look. Sound of Music, that's a beautiful one. The Princess and the Pea, Why Women, and Why Women Kill, wow. The Hungry Caterpillar, The River and the Source, folk stories in general, those stick with you. So Claire says folk stories. So if we just dissect a bit, why do those stories stick with you? So all of these stories that you're writing, Hyena versus the Rabbit, Chike and the River, Tom and Jerry, why does it stick? What somebody says, the tortoise and the hare, the tortoise, there are so many iterations of that tortoise story. Cinderella, the story of the piper who blew a flute to Lord. Yeah, I remember that. So who can say why those stories stick? And somebody mentions an ad, let's say one day you go make us proud. What is it about those things? Claire says, is it the morals? You could say that. Someone says, I'm looking, it was moving and made me get into spelling bees myself. Yeah, so that's Aquila and the Bee. So there was something about it that just tugged at your heartstrings for Aquila and the Bee, her story, her background, and seeing how through spelling, something that, maybe her parents didn't really see it, because I'm trying to remember the storyline, but I know it was spelling, and she needed this coach that invested in her, and that turned things around. I remember there was a part where it was the first time that her parents had traveled. So it's almost like, depending on your life circumstances, you can walk through that journey with that character or that story, but you see the end. The end is great, the end is nice. None of you in this place, except for the person that said women that kill, I don't know that one, you're not putting stories that end on a sad note, that end on a disastrous note. I don't see horror movies. Someone says, Oluwatomi says, the stories were relatable. Exactly. Graphical detail, connecting the abstract with the practical. Very, very great. Stories are always relatable. Thank you, because everything that you're writing in the chat is teaching my session. A story is very, very powerful. Let me tell you about my own favorite story. One of my favorite story is by Disney. It's called Mulan. And I remember watching that story as a young person, as a young girl. And what Mulan is anybody that has watched Mulan is this young girl, she's pretty much living her life in a society where there are these stereotypes about what girls can or cannot do, or where girls can or cannot go. And there was a call for people to enlist. So it was a battle and all of that. And I think her father didn't have sons. And so she then went to these guys, or they wanted to enlist her father. There were no sons, and she goes, cuts her very, very long hair, and then disguises as a guy, and goes, and she does incredibly well. She trains, and nobody knew she was a girl. She does all the things
Hello,
that,
Adebayo.
again, on the surface of it, nobody would have ever believed a girl could do any of those things. And then when it was now eventually discovered that she was a girl, it was a big thing, because she was doing the things that, guys were the only ones meant to do it. And for me, that story broke a lot of stereotypes in my mind, a lot of boundaries. And the beautiful thing about stories is that you can connect. You want to connect with funders, you want to connect with partners. It doesn't matter whether you are in Kebbi State, or you are in Lusaka, or you are in Harare. You can actually tell a powerful story that attracts funders, partners, volunteers, contributors, literally from across the world. So we see chess, is it Slum to School? No, I'm mixing it up. The chess one. I know there's Slum to School, but there's also the one of the, is it Slum to Chess? I don't know. But the chess one. You can see how from Nigeria, from the rural communities, and he's gone to the US. Yes, chess in slum. I knew that there was slum in it. He's gone, done the whole chess competition. I think they broke a world record. He's telling a powerful story and narrative on a global stage. Oh, yes, Queen of Katwe is actually a very powerful story. Okay, so that's my intro because I actually don't have a lot of time, but you get the point. Now, I want to do something a bit unconventional because when I teach these sessions, I do it in a more technical way, right? To say, okay, this is what you need to do, step one, step two. But I want to take you on a creative journey. I want to take you practically on how does this play out in real life. So you're going to learn the technical things, but you're going to learn it from the creative angle. So what I would say is come on this journey with me. And some of you mentioned that Cinderella is your favorite story. It's not my favorite story, but it's the story that I've chosen to illustrate the point for today. And we're going to be focusing on what Cinderella has in common with nonprofits. And I believe everybody, most people here would know Cinderella. So let us start by unpacking the Cinderella story. Let me just give a brief summary because I don't want to assume that everybody knows Cinderella. So you have this young girl. You start off with the backstory of her father. She's well loved. She's doted on, and then her mother dies. I think yes, her mother dies, and then her father then remarries this evil woman with her two stepdaughters, and they come into her life and dramatically change Cinderella's life. And then I think the father dies as well. Yes, the father dies, and she's now made to be pretty much a slave. And then an event happens. There's a prince, and she goes for the ball in disguise. She gets a fairy godmother that dresses her up well, and then she has to be back by midnight. Otherwise, everything turns back into what it was before. She leaves a golden slipper, and the prince is looking for who that slipper fits. They finally find her, it fits. She marries the prince, and you know how they say in fairy tale parlance, and everything ends up nice and pretty for her. Now that is a normal sequence in terms of stories that take you on a journey from where did this person start from, what happened, what was the conflict, how was it resolved. But if we're going to unpack the Cinderella story, the first thing that I want to highlight is that stories help people to remember your organization and the work that you do. So Chess in Slums, for example, he's telling me about how he's using chess to uplift young people that society has otherwise discarded. But I remember the organization that is empowering it, and that organization, the footprints that they are having across board. It then is relatable. A number of you said it in the chat. Stories help people to picture themselves within your mission, either because you connect with that person's story, maybe you came from similar circumstances, or something about the background of that story, you see yourself in it, whether because you've experienced it, you've seen it, you've come out of it yourself. And then there's connection. The truth is that we are highly emotional beings. Even the people that say, oh, we're very logical and we're very rational. Sometimes if you ask someone, why do you prefer this brand of water and not that brand? Sometimes people don't have concrete reasons. Sometimes it's an emotional response. A lot of times, actually, it's an emotional response. So what stories do for you is that they humanize your organization. You can tell me that you're doing fantastic job and your fantastic results that you're getting. But if you cannot connect emotionally with me, then there's no reason for me to want to take the extra step to support your organization. It doesn't mean you're not doing fantastic work. It just means that there is a gap. I'm not connecting to what you're doing, and stories can help you build that connection. And then dream come true. Stories help you to show, not just tell. A lot of nonprofits, you're doing a lot of telling. You're telling me that you're going to Nairobi, you're going to Diani, you're telling me of the things that you're doing, but you're not showing me the results. You're not showing me or taking me on a journey of transformation. And so what stories help you to do is helps you to show practically in a very, very tangible way how 1 naira is making a difference. A few years ago, a microfinance bank engaged me to create a documentary for them. And what they were doing was they were giving microloans of 10,000 naira. And we went to about 4, 5 states interviewing women that got that microloan, but they used that microloan to build businesses that sent their children to school, to build businesses that changed their family. And a particular woman, it was bag making. And so she used that money, learned a skill, started making bags, started using the money to train her own children, started teaching other women as well. And then when we got there that day, even her husband was involved in the bag making. Her children also learned it. So one of them, who was now in university, was using that bag making skill to develop, to earn extra money, because I mean, they didn't have so much to be giving her allowance, but she was good because of that bag making skill. And she's now also teaching people bag making. So it was we told such a beautiful story of how 10,000 naira led someone to learn a skill that was empowering not just her family, but also the cluster of women around. And we saw that in different places, in different clusters. And that was a powerful story of what can 10,000 naira do for a generation. And so you can see that in telling that story. So that organization could have said, hey, we give 10,000 naira to women, and we've given 50,000 women, and we've amassed this and that and that. But that one story of how 10,000 can change a generation was more impactful than any statistic they could have put in their annual report. I hope you know that the UN recently said that nobody reads, or well, not as many people, don't let me misquote them, read their reports because it's bulky, it's filled with facts. Nobody really cares. People are concerned about other things because they've not distilled it in such a way that will make it important. So let's continue our journey with Cinderella. These are some of the key lessons that we can learn from that story. And as we go along, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we'll take them afterwards. So you start with a character. Now, if you're doing any kind of work that you're doing, you have to center it on one person. You have to focus on who are the people benefiting. So you can be doing something that's benefiting young women, for example, or women between the ages of or young women between the ages of 18 and 25, or maybe it's young boys, or maybe it's people in a particular demography. But the way stories become compelling is when you single out one person within that group and tell that person's story. Your story is more compelling when it focuses on one character. And you have to then, what the powerful thing about this is that you can then segment, because you're speaking to a diverse audience. Your funder is going to be different from your partner, it's going to be different from volunteers, it's going to be different from any of the other stakeholders that you want to attract. And so you begin to identify, okay, this person's story will resonate more with our stakeholders. This person's story will resonate more with a volunteer. So for example, you want to get more young people to volunteer with you. You're going to tell a story that helps them to see a young person like themselves volunteering and the difference it made to their life. And because that is what will connect with them more. You don't want to show them a picture or tell them a story about a 50-year-old volunteering. They may most likely not connect with that person. Are we following? Are you with me on this journey? So you have to pick who and segment in that way. And what that does is that it gives you multiple stories to tell, multiple stories within the work that you're doing. The more your audience can relate to the character on some level, the more interested and engaged that they will be. So you want to make sure that you identify that one person. The next thing is you have to set the scene for your story. What is the background for this story? Who? So we have Cinderella. This is the picture of before the thing happened. Her dad passed away. Who is this person? Who is this woman? What's happening to them? What is their circumstance? Where are they? Are they in a rural community? Are they living below their means? Are they homeless? And why? Why is this story important? This is where your audience learns what is normal, what is the status quo, how are they living, and it sets that story in motion for you. You have to set the scene. It gives me context. It gives your audience context. And then the next thing is you then introduce the conflict. There is always conflict in every story that we like. There is no perfect story. I personally like Hallmark movies. I don't know anybody here that loves Hallmark movies. They're very, very predictable. My brother is always rolling their eyes. It's always predictable. But it's just that somebody, goes somewhere, then somebody comes, they fall in love with that person, then something happens, then they become angry, then they resolve the matter happily ever after. It's predictable, it's copy and paste. But there's always something that happens that throws the story off, right? And those of you that like superhero movies, so there's always the villain. Sometimes it's a challenge, it's an obstacle that needs to be overcome. So you've told us and you've given us the context of your character, of your beneficiary, or the people that benefit from the work that you do. So what are the challenges that they're facing or have the ones that they have faced that have led them to your organization. And so if you're an organization that you provide shelter to victims of domestic abuse, you then tell us of that challenge. You then tell us of that background, that situation. And why is it important for this person to overcome these struggles, these challenges? How does this build up? What are the odds that are stacked against them? Because these are the things that make people connect with the story. They see end to end how transformation, because I want you to see every story that you tell is a story of transformation. That's what it is. How do we transform young people's lives using a game of chess? How do we transform people's lives just by providing clean water, and we give them that opportunity to have access to be able to go to school? How do we help young girls to get on the education ladder by providing sanitary pads? Everything is a story of transformation. And so when you give the context of the conflicts, the obstacles, and the dangers, you give room for your audience to experience this from your character's perspective. Now, I want to pause here, because something that we don't do too well is the way we portray our beneficiaries or the person we're telling the story about. I don't know how many of you have had the terminology Oxfam child. So this person has kwashoko, there are bees and insects all over. Everything is, just not great. Now, is it true that there are people that live in those situations and circumstances? Of course, yes. There are people that are living in abject poverty. However, we must be intentional about not portraying a victim narrative with our stories. We must make sure that we're demonstrating, or we remember that dignity of the people that we are communicating about, because they are also human beings. And so if I want to tell a story of someone in abject poverty, I'm not going to put a picture of them looking so weary, no. I'm going to come from a perspective of hope, a picture of them dressed properly, still smiling despite the odds that they're facing. I can take their picture in the setting. So if you look at this young boy, this picture here, this is not a great picture to be telling of a story. You can still take a picture that maintains the dignity of this young boy, but still shows us the abject poverty he's surrounding. He can be dressed, he can be covered, even if you say, okay, he doesn't have clothes, but he can be covered, right? So we have to be very, very mindful of that. So show how your character, they've demonstrated courage, insight, and strength in the midst of the struggle, because that's what we want to connect with. And another thing I want everyone to realize is this era of where you're telling sad stories and that you tug at people's hearts is over, because do you know why? A lot of bad things are happening in the world. In fact, it's so alarming how people are now desensitized to some of these things. So that playbook no longer works again. So you want to talk from a perspective of hope, but please maintain dignity in the storytelling. So let's continue on this journey. How are things resolved? So you've given us the context, you've given us the background, you've told me about the conflicts, you've told me about the struggles, you've told me about the challenges. How does change happen? And this is where you show where transformation comes in. Okay, so they interacted with the organization. You started to teach them chess. You started to take them through this program. You started to provide antiretroviral drugs, whatever it is. But how did things shift for that character? What happened as a result of the shift? What are the lessons that we can begin to learn from it? Because these are the things. Again, remember, the ultimate goal is that you want to connect with your stakeholders. And so you're showing me. So let's bring this contextually to us. Number one thing I want you to remember is that your organization is not the hero of the story. So it's not that, hey, so Act Foundation, we empowered X number of grantees to do this. And no. What Act Foundation is doing is that Act Foundation is enabling the grantees, enabling them to make more impact across the continents. They are not the hero of the story. So let's look at two examples, A and B. A, our nonprofit fundraising efforts benefited Melody and her family. Now, on the surface of it, it doesn't look bad. It's a true statement where, we're raising money to support Melody and her family. But here is B. Melody and her family found housing and hope through our program. Melody shared, I can't express how much gratitude I have for Shelter Force. They provided a lifeline to my family after the wildfires destroyed our home. Please, in the chat, which one is more compelling to you, A or B? just reading it, you can take a few minutes to just read it, A or B, which is more compelling as a narrative, as a story?
B.
B. Yes, I
B.
see. Thank you so much.
B.
B. Exactly.
B.
Exactly. B. And the reason, let's unpack it. B gives you a bit of more context. You're telling me your nonprofit's fundraising efforts benefited Melody and her family. Permit me to be the antagonist here. Who cares? Do you understand? Who cares? This does not tell me, it leaves me with absolutely nothing, no information. But you see, B, I know Melody and her family, they found housing. So I know that, okay, this housing brought hope. So what Shelter Force did for them was not only to give them a house, they gave them shelter when their house was destroyed by the wildfires. I don't see that context in A. Are we getting it? So you're telling a story, you have to paint a vivid picture so if you tell me that Adedoyin, come and donate $1,000, B shows me what my $1,000 is being used for. Are we getting it? A tells me nothing. Okay, you're not the first nonprofit to be doing fundraising. But with B, I can practically and tangibly see that this is going. So if they can do this for Melody, it means that with my $1,000, they can house and bring hope to more people like Melody and her family in the future. That is the difference. The organization, you can see where Shelter Force comes in. Another thing that I want to point out here, it says Melody shared. In your story, please incorporate the voice of your target, of your beneficiary. And that could be a quote from them. That could be audio. For those of you that you do things that are sensitive with regards to maybe domestic or sexual violence, you can have their voices. So it can be audio, for example, or you can just read out a quote or write a quote, but something that they themselves expressed. It helps me or your audience or your stakeholders to see it from their own perspective, which now puts your organization at the back and puts them at the forefront. And that's something that Chess and Slump does very, very well. We see the children, we see the transformation. So where does your organization come in? So Adedoyin has said, oh, your organization is not the hero. Your organization is the behind the scene enabler of change and positive outcomes in this story of transformation. Please don't forget that. How do you enable change? What do you do? And so when you're now seeking for partnership, the call to action is that partner with us to enable more change that would impact thousands more young people. Partner with us to enable more change that would transform more communities across Uganda. Support us by investing in transforming the stories of women and young girls in X community. You're now telling a story. So it's not like, you're not giving me, my organization, the money. No, you're investing in the transformation of either the community, the young girls, or whoever the target beneficiary is. Are we getting it now? That is a more compelling story. That is a more powerful story. And that is a more memorable story that you can tell. Because of time, let me go on quickly. So let's look at another example. Story one. Again, this is I got it from a screenshot from a non-profit storytelling. So story one, any money that you donate will help Rokia, a 7-year-old girl who lives in Mali, a country in West Africa. Rokia is desperately poor and faces a threat of severe hunger, even starvation. Her life will be changed for the better as a result of your gift. With your support and the support of other caring sponsors, Save the Children will work with Rokia's family and other members of the community to help feed and educate her and provide her with basic medical care. And I'm going to unpack this just a bit, but let me read the second one. The second one says, food shortages in Malawi are affecting 3 million children. In Zambia, severe rainfall deficits have resulted in 42% drop in maize production in 2000. As a result, an estimated 3 million Zambians face hunger. 4 million Angolans, 1/3 of the population, have been forced to flee their homes. More than 11 million people in Ethiopia need immediate food assistance. First of all, which of these stories tugs at your heart to want to do something? One or two? So two. And remember at the beginning, I was telling you about when you're throwing facts, statistics, figures. It's very factual, very, very factual about food shortages, about the damage that severe rainfall has caused, about the fact that 1 million people in Ethiopia need immediate food assistance. And then you have story 1 that focuses on Rokia, which is the principle that we're telling you about. So number 1, exactly, number 1. Okay, Abiodun, I've seen your message, thank you. Number 1, exactly. This, okay, you're telling me, first of all, this story is all over the place. Malawi, Zambia, Ethiopia, where am I supposed to be focused on? But here we go into Rokia. Because of time, I can't really deep dive. There are changes that I will make in this story. When you say Rokia is desperately poor, why? That language is too strong, right? But anyway, I think you've gotten the point. I have to move on. I have pretty much like 5 minutes to go. But I hope you can see the difference in what compels and drives action, because at the end of the day, your story must inspire action. And so you show the result. What is the takeaway from this story? This is where you tie everything together. Your audience needs a clear lesson, a takeaway, a message. There has to be a message. Please don't tell a story for telling a story's sake. You need to know the outcomes. Provide your audience with the essential takeaway that will bring prompt action, because at the end of the day, you want to inspire action. And so your story must end, needs to end with a call to action. Okay, you told me the story of Rokia. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to donate? Am I supposed to volunteer? Am I supposed to sign up? What exactly? And this is where you then invite your audience to be a hero within the story and an enabler, because whether you like it or not everybody gives us support from altruistic reasons. Some people are very egoistic, and that's okay. You can feed into their ego. So it's either you are a hero in this story or you are an enabler as the audience. And so you invite them to come into that story. And you need to make it simple and straightforward. Some people, it's so confusing. You're telling me to do so many things at once. Let it be simple, which is why I'm asking you, segment your stories. If the story is about volunteering, focus on that. If it's on partnership, focus on that. And that's where multi-channel storytelling comes. You can repurpose your story in different contexts with different call to actions. It's okay to share the same story more than once. In fact, statistics show that an audience needs to see something 3 to 5 times before they make an action. You've posted it on Instagram, they will just scroll past. Then they see it again on LinkedIn. Then they hear it on a podcast. Then they see it on a billboard, for those of you that can afford to do billboards. It takes time. The next time they go on Instagram, they see it again. They see it again in different iterations. And so you need to leverage multi-channel storytelling, leverage pictures, leverage video. Audio is also very, very powerful. Sound bites, quotes. Think about how you can tell your story in different ways. So you can use social media, email campaigns. I saw a nonprofit that did an email campaign with one person, but they broke it into a series. So they said, today we're going to tell you about, let's call the person John. And then that's in tomorrow's story, we're going to tell you about the new friend that John made in this center. So it's like a series that you have to wait. And then the next installment, they're telling you about John's friend. Oh, but something happened that caused a significant shift. Tomorrow we'll tell you about it. I mean, it was so amazing. So you can do that. You can have a newsletter. You can do podcasts. Because again, creating some of these content, doing a documentary is very expensive. And so you think about low-cost ways to be able to tell your stories. So just to wrap up, because of time, support your story with compelling visuals. Please remember to use visuals that are dignifying. Visuals, somebody's mic is muted. Visuals that really, really are compelling, and don't use low budget visuals. We have passed that era. People will move on. Invest in good equipment. Take pictures under good light. There's no time for me to tell you how to create, good pictures, even if you don't have the best of equipment. Good natural lights. Pay attention to ethics in your storytelling. Get the consent of the people that you're telling their stories about. Maintain their dignity. Segment your story and use formats and channels that will reach and connect most with your audience. Some people are not on social media. Some people, in fact, there's a nonprofit that used there's someone's mic that is unmuted that is a bit distracting, please. They used a radio series to highlight different beneficiaries and their story. It was so powerful. That's something that you may want to do. Make it easy for your audience to take the action that you need them to take. So if your call to action is donate, is there a button I can click? Is it visible for me? Is it easy? Can I navigate your website? Some of you, your website is so bulky. Some of you don't even have a website. Let's not even go there. Be creative, but please don't make things overly complex. I'm not asking you to be a J.K. Rowling that is adding subplots and things. No, the simpler, the better, because less is often more. And just to conclude, great stories have the power to touch hearts. It can change minds. But I believe that most importantly, great stories can create memorable and lasting impact. And as nonprofits, professionals, founders, stakeholders within this ecosystem, that is what you want to create a memorable and lasting impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Adedoyin. I see ovations going on. I see emojis going on. I wish we could do this for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 hours because she has so much to unpack. But how much can you do in just 2 hours? We don't want to keep you too long online. If you want more from Adedoyin, I know that you can sign up for the Comms Avenue. She will share information about how to get on board that, and then we'll share with you so that you can get more information and more knowledge, of course, more skills about storytelling. We'll take 1 or 2 questions and then we'll move on to Omoye Oriagan because Omoye also is coming to deliver. She's going to be addressing the challenges of storytelling and she'll be sharing case studies, that we can also interactively relate with. I'm looking in the Q&A section. Someone here says, how do you measure the impact of your story?
Thank you. I didn't get to touch on measuring the impact. So measuring the impact of your story, you have to first of all define. Remember I said to you at the beginning, what do I want this story to achieve? Am I telling this story because I want to get more funders, more partners, more volunteers? Because those are the things that will help you to set your measurement metrics. And so if I'm saying that I'm using this story for fundraising efforts, one of the metrics is how many people express interest in supporting financially, in donating. And so that's why your call to action is very, very important. So if I put this story, for example, in a newsletter and I embed my donation link, from that story, I want to be looking at the back end of the website to see how many people clicked. So, there are newsletter features that help you to see when you're looking at the metrics, how many people clicked the link within the newsletter. I want to look at that. I then want to look at how many people went to my donation page. How long did they stay in my donation page? Then how many people actually, because it's one thing to open the donation page, it's another thing to actually click donate. How many people donated? Then how many people, maybe somebody read the newsletter, maybe they didn't click, but they sent me a message. For example, maybe they saw something on social media and they expressed interest in supporting. How many of those did I receive? And then I document all of that. That is how you measure the impact. It is in your call to action, which is why you have to be very, very clear on what you want to achieve and then put the metrics and use the right tools to help you measure whatever metric it is that you've set. I hope that helps.
I hope that helps too. Okay, one more question and then we'll move on to more sessions. This person asked, how can storytelling help us build long-term partnership with media and corporate sponsors?
So what it does is it brings credibility, right? You're telling different stories of, so let's even take a story of transformation. You're telling me a story of a young person that, was in abject poverty, and I see the journey of how your organization has improved this person's life. So it speaks of your own consistency to your mission, your own credibility in terms of the outcomes that you achieve, because there are people that collect money from sponsors and they use it from something else. And so your ability to bring all of these stories together, either in an impact story or impact report on your website, your YouTube page, all of those channels, I'm learning, I'm seeing the fact that these people are credible, and then the media knows that, and these people are doing impactful work. Your sponsors know that they can give you money and the money is delivering from them because they're sponsoring you because they want you to do the work so that they can say they supported you and this was the outcome. So that's how storytelling will help you. There's something that was in the chat, Abiodun, if I can just touch on, and someone was saying, Claire, that how do we tell our stories without facts and figures? Claire, you're right, there's empathy fatigue. And the point is that you not to discard facts and figures because you need them, but it's how you tell the story using facts and figures. You can tell a story with facts. So for example, if somebody wants to tell me that, 8 million children are suffering or in abject poverty, you can Single out one person and say 1 in 8 children or 1 in 8 children like Rokia are suffering this across board. You can tell it in a story and communicate that fact. But the thing is, don't give people hard facts. That's what it is. Embed your fact in a story so that people can remember. So thank you very much.
Wow, I can't stop writing. As I write one, another pops up, and I'm just scribbling and writing and writing. This is so rich. Thank you so much, Adedoyi. Before we move ahead, I wanted to just quickly, check with us. If you can write in the chat box, what is your biggest challenge with storytelling? And then Omoye will come up. What is your biggest challenge with storytelling as an organization, as an individual who is probably spearheading storytelling in your organization? What is your biggest challenge? We'll go into the chat room and I'll have Omoye come up. Omoye, are you ready? Oh, getting people to care. Okay, that's from Claire. Thank you so much. Michael says, how to ensure your script aligns with the donor. Okay. I have a thing with that, aligning your script with the donor. All right, Joyce says, how to connect data with the use of story. And Praise says, inaccessibility to the beneficiaries. Oh, that's your greatest challenge about storytelling, okay? Biggest challenge is gathering the stories. Okay, so what about gathering the stories is challenging? Please says, getting beneficiaries to share their story. Adeline, do you want to address any of these challenges as we expect Omoye to come up?
There's a lot to address. I don't even know where to start from. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this person that says aligning with donor, aligning with donor requirements. What do you think about that? Ensuring that your script aligns with the donor. Should that be the way to go?
So I don't think it's about aligning with the donors because again, you don't want to be all things to all men. You have to maintain the integrity of who you are as an organization. So you need to first of all define that, then identify donors that are aligned with your core identity, your core values. Now, what it is that donors' interests are very, very different. What I would say you should pay attention to, what are they looking out for? Are they looking out for how this money is spent in terms of, oh, they're looking for numbers? Because there's some donors, it's just a vanity fair. Let's be very honest with ourselves. So you need to say, what is this donor's priority? And then once it's aligned with your priority, you can then tell the stories in a way that helps the donors to see the numbers. Some donors, they just want to see their logos. They just want to see so you can align it once. But I think for me, you need to know yourself so that you're aligned with donors that align with your values. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, Omoye is ready for us. We'll continue in this conversation and then we'll take more questions. Omoye, over to you, Nigeria. All right, I'll go ahead and share a couple more challenges while we allow Omoye to fix the issue with her internet. Okay, going on. Abdul Rashid says, initiating this type of story, okay? Our biggest challenge, ensuring your target audience engages with your stories. Ensuring your target audience engages with your stories in the first place. You're just, the one shedding the spotlight onto it. Getting beneficiaries to share their story. Adedoyin, what do you think about this? Getting beneficiaries to share their story.
I was going to speak to that. So sometimes what we tend to do is we would say, oh, okay, tell us your impact story, maybe fill a form or do anything. You have to embed curation of story in your programmatic elements. And this is what I mean. So you go into a community, you're doing an outreach, document how did you benefit from this? Engage them there, whether you are recording it, start capturing those stories. Don't wait till the end. That's the mistake we make because people sometimes can be lazy to sit down and document the story. So every time you do an outreach, every time you go somewhere, then you get the people's story. Better to let them speak, let them record it. You can then transcribe. What you that then need to do is now, when you finish everything, you get their permission before you publish. But that's what we do. So for example, any programs that we do at the Comms Avenue, we're getting feedback. we're asking people to think about what they've learned. How did this improve you? Then you can touch in again a few months. You can even set up a Zoom call depending on your beneficiary. Get them on board. So what difference has this made? Let them talk. You have to make it as easy as possible for them. If you're sending anybody a form to be writing, there's like a mental barrier. It's just writing, but there's just this mental barrier. And we have to also remember your beneficiaries are living life and going through life. So how do you collect those stories? Embed it in every stage in your programmatic design. That's what I would advise in that case.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks again. Omoye, are you there now? Are you able to connect? Okay, Okoyemi says, translating data into relatable terms with the audience. I think Adedoyin already mentioned, instead of saying 1 million, girls face social problem, you can, identify maybe 1 out of 8, 1 in 4, and mention the name, put a face to that name and share their experience. Do you want to say something else about that, Adedoyin?
Yeah, another example is, so I think you should also look at elements that people can relate to. So if you tell me, for example, if I know a popular stadium and you want to tell me the scale of a problem, you can tell me that the number of people displaced can fill 10 stadiums in Lagos or 10 of the biggest stadium in your region. So in my head, because I already know, I have a visual picture of that stadium, and I imagine that stadium filled 10 times, it gives me the impact of scale, as opposed to telling me 1 billion. I can't picture 1 billion. So I see Omoye, I'm handing over to her now.
All right, finally, internet cooperates. Okay, over to you, Omoye. Please do not lose your pen and paper because she's also coming with a banger.
Thank you very much.
Omoye, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My apologies. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Just let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, I think it went off. Okay, so you can see my screen, right?
Yes, please. We can see it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I was going to say thank you so much, Adedoyin. Our session was absolutely amazing. I love the fact that she used a story to take us on a journey of storytelling and very profound, interesting lessons that we have learned so far. I have also about 30 minutes, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to maximize my time. And I'm trusting that my internet will be as friendly during this entire session. So I would be starting now. My name is Omoye. I'm the Senior Branding and Communications Executive here at ACT Foundation. And one of the things that we're very big on here is storytelling, especially with the people that we work with. We believe so much. And as we must have seen over the years, especially in recent times, that storytelling is the way to go. I was going to say that there was a time when storytelling wasn't a big deal. There was a time when you didn't have to tell so much and you could still maybe achieve a lot, get the funding and all of that. And just like Adedoyin said, even the UN is saying nobody is really reading our bulky reports. So what that means is that people are more interested in the stories that they have to tell. So they go on their YouTube channel, they go on their social media channel, and they are interested in all of the different stories that they have to tell compared to wanting to read all the different statistics. There was a time when people were interested in the statistics, but in the era that we live in the moment, not many are interested. Right now, what people want to hear are your stories of how it has impacted the people the communities that you are targeting. So there's a paradigm shift. And I'm saying this to let us know that if you do not know that in this day and age, then you are in the right place. And I believe that in the last, say, 40 minutes, you have been educated to know that this is a very, very important aspect of the work that you do as a nonprofit. I want to be sure that you're still listening to me. So can I get reactions that you can still hear me? Reactions, the thumbs up to know that you can still hear me. Because I need to be sure that you can hear me. Thumbs up, please, if you can still hear me. Okay, thank you. I think I've seen the reaction. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, the goal of my session basically is to identify some common storytelling challenges that nonprofits face and also to uncover some best practices that can help you navigate through these challenges. But before I continue, let me say this, that your storytelling goal, your storytelling plan, your communication plan as an organization goes a long way, emphasis on a long way to helping you achieve your organization's goals. So you set out as an organization in the start of the year or for any project that comes on and you have a goal. These are the things that we seek to achieve. Your communications plan, your storytelling plan helps you on in a very, very interesting and profound manner to help you achieve these goals. So you can no longer put it at the back seat. For those people who have put communications at the back seat, I'm here to speak to you. And for those of us who are trying to say, okay, it's not that well, we're trying to improve, but we're not there yet. This is also for you. So today we're going to be talking about some of the common challenges that you face. And I'm certain that as I speak on, you would find your nonprofit in one of the challenges that I'll be identifying. But before we get into the challenges, I want to ask us a question. And the question is, how would you describe this man called Tony Elumelu? Now, I'm not going to tell you who he is, but I will eventually. But for those who know him, I know we have a widespread audience here. But then I see that we have a whole lot of Africans. And I know that Tony Elumelu is an African that people know. So before I tell you who he is, tell me one word to describe the man Tony Elumelu. I see philanthropist, I see business mogul, is an investor, is a game changer, is a businessman, is the father of Africa capitalism. Okay. A philanthropist, successful businessman, change agent, trailblazer, entrepreneur, relatable. Okay, I like that. Relatable, banker, anymore, a good brand manager. I love that. An entrepreneur, a businessman, visionary. Okay. I see that. I love the responses that we're getting. One word, a thought leader in banking and finance, a strategist. Love this. Thank you very much for sharing this. Now I'm going to play a video that I want us to watch. And it's just a 30 seconds video. So you'd let me know if you can, if nothing is being said. So just watch the video, okay? Apologies about the audio. Just watch the video. Okay, so it's a 30 seconds video. I'm sorry about the sound. It's actually a music that was playing in the background. I'm truly sorry about that. But then just watching this 30 seconds video, what story do you think he was trying to tell? And by the way, this is Tony Elumelu. He is the chairman of Hairs Over Africa. All the words that you use to describe him, yes, is a philanthropist, a business goal. All of these different words describe this man, Tony Elumelu. But watching this video of about 30 seconds, what would you tell me? What story did you think he told through the video? You don't need the audio. The audio was just a very vibing song that I was actually vibing to hear, but then it's okay. So his personal story, a day in his life. Video tell you in a phrase, in a sentence, a day about his business, a business meeting, okay, how he works, busy and well organized man, all right. So while I look in, yeah, consistency, thank you very much. So while I look at your feedback, okay, I'm seeing use of high tech, I see direction and focus, storytelling about his career, always on the job, showing up daily for what he believes in, fantastic. So it's obvious that you are getting the message, right? You're getting the message. All of your feedback right now is telling me that you're getting the message that he is trying to tell you through this very short 30 seconds video. It's a 30 seconds video that reflects his daily lifestyle. Now, Tony Elumelu, like we all have described, is a business mogul that probably do not need any form of from publicity in quotes. Doesn't need to tell you much about his life. He's just going to be running his businesses and doing and making the billions on a daily basis or a weekly basis, right? However, he sits down, and by the way, this video is it's an acted out video, as you can see. He never was in any meeting. He never was doing anything on his tab. He was not doing anything in his phone. He just acted out a 30 seconds video and put it out there. But he had the message. He had a goal. Now, for someone like this, you think it doesn't need to come on here and tell us anything, because I mean, we already know him, his work speaks for himself, blah, blah, blah. But then this is somebody who still takes his time to create a video like this to tell you a particular story. And the story here, the message here is, this is my daily routine. I'm a very focused man. I'm very committed. I show up every day. I show up to do the reason why you see all of these different businesses still working and achieving the impact and the successes that they do is because I show up every day. All right. We don't need to know. He doesn't need to tell us, but then he's still taking his time to do this. Now, many lessons that would learn here that would be reflected in some of the things that I'll be sharing in the course of today's presentation. Right. Now, like I said, though prominent, yet still tells a story. There are many nonprofits or some nonprofits who think that they do not have to tell stories. Some nonprofits are at a particular point in their journeys where they feel like, oh, we've been here 20 years, so people know that we've been here for so long. Tony Elumelu disagrees with that. He says, I still have a story to tell. All right. And even if it's not the story that you're expecting me to tell, but I want to tell you this story. And by the way, this video got a lot of views on social media, a lot of views, even though we all know that it was an acted video, but yet it still got a whole lot of views. And so he had a story and he came out to tell it. That's another angle. What is the story that you want to tell? What's the goal? What's the message in that story that you want to tell? You don't just go out to the battlefield and you take your gun and you just start shooting everywhere. You need to have a target. Where are you targeting? What is the message? And I think that Adedoyi touched on this, and we'll touch on this a bit further as we go on. Now, like I said, I'll be talking about some of the storytelling challenges that we face as nonprofits and how we can surmount these challenges in the course of our work. Now, one of these challenges is one, limited capacity and skills. Like I said, you'll be finding yourself in some of the things that I'll be saying, because I want it to be as real and practical as it can be. Many a times we come to sessions like this, we hear a whole lot. Facilitators come and they pour out their heart like Adedoyin has, and then we are inspired. But then we leave this place and the question is, what do we do with the knowledge that we've gained? It just goes away. And over time, you just remember that, oh, I attended a very insightful session, and that's all that is that, and that's all there is to the session. Oh, it was amazing. Adedoyin was amazing, and that's it. But today, I want us to be able to move beyond just listening to all the amazing points to applying everything that we learn from our sessions. All right. So please, can you mute? Somebody is unmuted, please, because it's a bit distracting. Thank you. One of the challenges that we face is limited capacity and skills. Now, many nonprofits lack trained personnel in storytelling and communications. You'd realize that many nonprofit organizations do not have a communications department or a communications officer. Sometimes you find a case where you have the HR doubling as a communications officer, or you have the front desk doubling as a communications officer, or you have the M&E officer doubling as a communications officer. Usually that restricts the ability to do what should be done as a communications or a storytelling, well, as a communications officer, because storytelling is, you don't have a storytelling officer. But in some cases, when you have an expanded team, you definitely have somebody who will be handling your storytelling. But yes, let's talk about the fact that, okay, maybe some of us are still just building our nonprofits. Because I know that the next question you'd ask me, and I can hear the questions in your mind is, oh, we're looking for funds. We don't have enough to be able to employ a lot of people as well as build a strong communications team. But do you know that communications is an investment and storytelling is an investment? And investment, the last I heard, isn't cheap. It is something that must be done. It is an investment that must be done. You've heard about how this will connect you to the donors, how this will bring the funders. And yes, storytelling does bring in funds. It does bring in partnerships. I love the fact that Adedoyin used the case study of chess in slums for all of us throughout our presentation. I know that if for those of us who don't know chess in slums, it will be a great point to go and just take a look at who they are and what they've done. If you look at when they started a couple of years back and where they are today, you would know that the founder used the tool of storytelling to attract a lot of partnership. And I can assure you that in his team, he surely has a communications officer. So this is for those of us who are still thinking, no, we can work around it. Oh no, we don't really need to have a communications officer. And I'm not saying this because I just thought about it. I've had conversations with nonprofits because of the line of the work that we do and the fact that we work with a lot of nonprofits here at ACT Foundation. And I've heard some of the challenges. And one of the challenge is that they do not have a dedicated team. And that in itself will impede whatever storytelling you want to tell. So I'm encouraging us. It may look like it costs a lot, but let me tell you some tools that you can leverage when it comes to building capacity as a team. Volunteerism. Volunteerism. I know that today not a lot of people want to volunteer, maybe because the organizations that they volunteered for in the past have not been very kind to them. But volunteerism is something that you can use. You don't have enough money to pay a paid staff. You can leverage volunteerism with incentives, by the way. You can also, in a country like Nigeria, where we have the National Youth Service Corps, and then you have core members who can work with you, you can leverage that, right? You can leverage this and you can get these people to work for you within a certain period. You can leverage internship. You can leverage internship. These are things that you can leverage to be able to get this, to build this capacity. But not having a communications team is a challenge that we must fix. And doubling responsibilities, having a different person with a different responsibility handling communications usually would not allow you achieve what you need to do with storytelling. Storytelling requires strategy. Storytelling requires planning. Storytelling requires a lot. You don't just jump up and get into storytelling, all right? And I'll talk a bit about that as we go on. So limited capacity and skills is definitely a challenge that we must address. Now, let's move on to the next. Poor documentation and data storage. Poor documentation and data storage. Some of us are on this table. Inconsistent or informal recording of our data makes it difficult to be able to generate or even back up stories. Some of us don't even have storage. Some of us don't have storage. You go for events, you take stories on a staff's phone, photos, quotes, you put it on the staff's gadget, and you think that the staff is going to work with you forever. The person leaves and leaves with your data. You have a staff and you're using their storage. How about you have your own storage, a cloud storage, an external drive? Having your own storage, having the consciousness to say, we need to start storing our own stories. You have pictures, you store them. If I ask you, you've been running for the last 10 years, can you still get pictures, videos from 10 years ago, from the events that you did 10 years ago? Do you still have them? It's a question that I'm asking, and you need to answer in your minds, right? These are very important questions. Inconsistent and informal recording. You can no longer record things informally. If you want to tell good stories, then you need to have a bank where you can refer to for information, for data, all right? Photos, quotes, and testimonials are often not collected. You plan an event and you are not really planning to get photos, you're not planning to get testimonials, you go all out for a major event, and then you come back and you're like, oh my God, we didn't plan to get this information. Oh, how do we get this story? Or you recorded a video, you didn't ask for the person's name, you got a testimonial, you didn't get the person's name, and then you come back and you're trying to, go through your data and you're confused. Oh, who was this person again? What was this person's name? Oh, where's this person's picture? My God, I can't find it. These are some of the challenges that we encounter. Poor documentation. We need to start improving on our documentation. And that is why having a dedicated team would help with that. If you're relying on another team to help with communications, you usually would suffer some of these challenges. All right, now next is donor-driven narratives. And remember, we're talking about the challenges that nonprofits face in their storytelling. Donor-driven narratives. Stories are often shaped to please the funders. Remember, Adedoyin said this. You're trying to please your funders. You're trying to make them feel like, oh, okay, it's all about them. No, it's not. It's not so much about them. I know that they gave you the money and you need more money, but you need to be able to tell the stories in a way that it doesn't only appeal to them, but it appeals to various other people who would love to partner with you. All right. So focusing on the outputs instead of authentic community voices. So you're talking about, you remember the example that she gave about the statistics and the other story, the Rafia story, and the one of, just stating a lot of statistics. And yes, your donor needs all of that, but the community, the targeted audience, they need to hear the voices of the people in the community. So you need to begin to reorder, rearrange your storytelling so that it's not just very clear to us that this story was done just to make the donor happy. All right. There's pressure to present only success stories. And now let's talk a bit about success stories. There's this pressure out there. We want to talk about the success. We want to talk about the success. And you avoid mentioning failures. You forget that some of the failures that you encountered in the project is also part of the story. The failures you encountered, navigating that is part of the story. So we must begin to understand that this is part of the story. So it's not just success, it's impact. It's the challenges we encountered. It's the lessons that we learned. It was the kind of people that we met. It was how we navigated through the hostility that we encountered. All of these different things, they form your impact story. So when you have the mindset that you want to tell impact stories, you would never lack stories. I saw a question where somebody was saying, how do you tell a story pre-project implementation? There are a lot of stories to tell. Stories about the state of the community that you're going to, stories about the problem, stories. There's so many stories that you can tell. So you don't, because we think sometimes it's, oh, when we go and we implement the project, that's when we get the stories. There are pre-stories that you can tell. And that's when you begin to view storytelling from the impact base and not from the success base. All right. And I'll just talk a bit about that here. Success story versus impact story. Your success story usually are stories that focuses on positive outcomes. Oh, we just want to tell how great this project was, how we reached 5,000 people or 1 million people, and how effective it was, and how we were able to distribute, all of these different materials, or we dug 50 boreholes, and wow, now we have communities of about 1 million people drinking clean water. Bravo, that's amazing. But you know that that's just success. Whereas when you want to tell an impact story, you are delving deeper. You're showcasing both the intended and unintended results. People want to know also that when you went into that community, when you dug the first well, probably some people came and they closed up the well because they never truly understood the project. All right. Or the women complained, or the children complained, or something happened. All right. You need to, but then you're not just also dwelling on the challenges, but you're also telling us how you were able to navigate this challenge and how you're working towards success. All right. So showcasing both the intended and unintended results, including challenges, lessons learned to illustrate the broader impact of the intervention of the project. Because there's a broader impact. And that's what we should begin to focus on. Stop focusing on just success. Success is good, but we are all about impact. The last I heard, nonprofits were all about impact. And so we need to start to think impact. When you think impact, you have more stories to tell, much more stories to tell than just the typical stories of, oh, we went there, we wanted to cure hunger, we provided this amount of food, now the children are no longer hungry anymore. Yay, we've done well. All right. This should stir you to begin to think more about impact storytelling. Are you following me? Let me know that you're following me. Thank you. Now, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to dwell so much on this third. Thank you so much. I'm not going to dwell so much on stereotyping because you mentioned it. Now, churning out stories that exploit poverty. If you look at this picture, and you'd see that all of this is just exploiting poverty, and we call it poverty porn when it comes to this line of work. You're exploiting poverty, you're exploiting suffering, using images and video clips that degrade communities. And most of us, or virtually almost all of us here, are Africans. And usually this whole poverty porn is done basically within Africa, more within Africa. And if we Africans are doing the same, then it's a very sad case, because there's so much dignity that we can reflect even when we try to talk about our challenges, like Adedonyi said. There's so much beauty that we can tell. So how about we talk about the beauty? How about you met these kids and you gave them some t-shirts? Yes, we can still look into their eyes and know that these children definitely need help, but they don't have to look this way. All right. You don't have to show the bees and the flies and all of the different things that just dehumanizes and, basically degrades the community. We need to begin to tell stories, even when we're trying to highlight some of the challenges, that we face in communities. We tell it from the place of strength. We tell it from the place of beauty, where we're trying to say that we are actually beautifying Africa. We're amplifying the beauty of Africa. Where we know that these challenges exist, but we know what the society can become, because this is what it has been and this is how it can be. So that's how we take people on that journey, not telling them, look at it, it's been like this, it's so bad. And and again, it doesn't really work anymore. There was a time it worked, but it doesn't. Right now, what it does is that it just degrades us before the world. Nonprofits must learn these practices, and we must begin to adopt more dignity-centered storytelling approach. All right, thank you. Now, let's talk about lack of strategic storytelling framework. And I'm just checking the chat room to just be sure that everyone is following. All right, so lack of strategic storytelling framework. For many nonprofits, storytelling is often reactive, and this was what I was trying to say before, rather than strategic. Now, you start off in the year, you have your organization's goals, and you never actually planned a storytelling goal or a storytelling strategy for the goals that you seek to achieve in the course of the year. You got a project from a particular donor and you're so excited, you mapped out the plan. Have you mapped out a storytelling plan? Have you mapped out your communications plan? Or you're just going all out, and then when something happens and you're like, oh my God, we should tell a story about this. That's being reactive. Prepared and you are on the lookout for stories, it doesn't meet you unprepared. Rather, it meets you ready and looking and hungry to craft stories out of anything and everything. So be strategic, not overemphasize this. You must have your plan, your storytelling plan linked to your organization's goals, because it's I've seen cases where people would just tell random stories and you're asking, okay, so this story you just told, of what use is it to the goal, to the bigger vision or goal of the organization? Oh, well, I just thought it was a cool story to tell. It doesn't make sense. Tony Elumelu, that video that I showed, he definitely had a goal. He wants you to know this is his style, this is his routine, this is how he approaches life and his work. There was a goal. He didn't just wake up and say, okay, I'm bored today. And a man like that cannot be bored because he has a lot of things to do. So you know that this was strategic. This is strategic. You can tell strategic stories. You just need to plan them out. You can no longer function from the realm or from the place of just being reactive. We must become proactive and very strategic. All right. On this note, having highlighted some of these challenges that we face, and I know that I've seen a couple of questions, and I believe that we'll be able to answer or touch on some of these questions once we're done. Let's do a quick case study. All right, a quick case study, and the case study will highlight a number of these challenges, and then you will propose some solutions, because I believe that all that has been deposited through the sessions that we've had today has made us much more knowledgeable with regards to storytelling, and we can even become teachers after today's session. All right, so let's delve into today's case study. I'm going to be reading it, but I also want you to track with me as I read. All right, now just give me a sec, please. In a small town in Ghana, in northern Ghana, Water Aid Foundation was making quiet progress. The team had just completed its 10th borehole, okay, now I know I've been mentioning borehole all the while, bringing clean water to communities that once relied on contaminated streams. Mothers no longer had to walk miles every morning, and children spent more time in school. The impact was real. But when Water Aid tried to share its impact, the cracks began to show. At their office, Sarah, the program officer, sat with her phone in hand, scrolling through blurry photos of borehole openings. These are all we have, she sighed. None of the photos have been properly labeled or stored, and the beneficiaries' names were long forgotten. The only staff member who once tried to document stories had since left, and no one else had the skills or time to take it up. Let's continue. Their latest donor report was due. Kwame, the director, typed furiously on his laptop, filling the document with numbers: 10 boreholes, 2,500 people reached, 15 water committees trained. He knew the donors wanted figures, not the messy details about how the borehole broke down within weeks or the committee that was struggling to keep records. Now, let's continue. Apologies. Later, when drafting a proposal for new funding, the team debated what photos to attach. Someone suggested using an image of barefoot children scooping brown water with old tin. It grabs attention quickly, said one team member. Sarah frowned uneasy, but in the end, the picture went in. It was dramatic, but it only told half the truth. Despite their efforts, Water Aid stories rarely reached beyond donor reports. They had no clear plan for sharing progress with communities, government agency, or the wider public through social media and the media. Communications happened only where deadline loomed. The result was a scattered mix of updates that never quite conveyed the heart of their mission. Water Aid was doing important work on the ground, but without stronger storytelling, their impact remained invisible, their dignity at risk, and their sustainability uncertain. Let me read that last line again. Water Aid was doing important work on the ground, but without stronger storytelling, their impact remained invisible, their dignity was at risk, and their sustainability was uncertain. Now, let's move on to some discussion points. Did we all follow the story, or do you want me to take you back on the story. Did we all follow the story?
Yes,
Let
we
me know.
followed.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now, let's discuss this quickly. What specific storytelling challenges can you identify in WaterAid situation, and what solutions do you recommend to each of these challenges? I see a hand raised. I see a hand raised. So I'm going to take two people speaking. If I have time, Bibi, please let me know how much time I have left. I want to take two people, and then I'll take responses in the comment. Please, let's use the chat room. Thank you very much. So I see, I hope I'm not murdering your name. Ibida. Ibida, can you speak?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, please
Hi.
speak.
Yes, this is me. This is Abida. So I think the biggest problem that WaterAid has is the first thing that you told us about, which is limited capacity and skills. Which, because they didn't have a dedicated person, they didn't have a dedicated device, and they didn't have also like anything about their documentation and data storage. So they could not ensure a process for whenever they had to go out for their activities that would help in documenting. And even the one person that they had, because they didn't have a proper documentation and storage process, there was no way for them to, keep the pictures or the write-ups or whatever and continue to even maintain that when that person left the organization. So what would I advise WaterAid to do?
Yes.
The first thing that they could do around building a stronger storytelling framework is to have a dedicated process they follow for their events. So that would mean at every event, we want to get 40 pictures, and then we want to have two write-ups that detail everything that is there. Because what that does is that after the event, they are able to check it out and be like, okay, did we get that? Did we get like a sort of write up that can be repurposed, or whoever is going to be creating content or impact reports in the future would just have to go through that and do it. They would also need to create sort of get a specific device. So I know that's what some people do is they have like an office tablet or iPad or phone that can be used to take pictures or videos whenever they go for events, and they would have to have a specific person that would then be on ground, and that is the only thing that they're going to be doing for that day. And also now create a process for storing it. So okay, upload everything to the Google Drive and label it. And so all the pictures that come from, let's say they do fundraisers, inside fundraisers you would have that folder, and then you would have fundraiser dates, so that you have everything stored there, and then a report about it that can then be repurposed. If they do that, it may not solve all their problems immediately, but it's a great place to start.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Avida. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So I realize that my time is fast spent. I know I saw Derek. I don't know if your hand is still up.
Yes,
I
I'm
know I
here.
saw. Okay, so quickly in 30 seconds.
Yes, 30
please.
seconds.
Yes.
So I'll just backtrack a bit to what my last speaker said. They didn't have a communication framework, because if they had a communication framework or strategy, it would have shown that the resources they will need and the different points where they have to do review and check the content they captured to see for quality and clarity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Derek and Abida. I may not be able to take more people. I see more hands. I'm so sorry, but I'm reading through our comments in the comments room. And also, this is an opportunity. At this point, you can start to put your questions in the Q&A room. I also know that some of us have put some questions there. We will try to address a couple of them. I see that, yes, I like the fact that, you officer's business with communication, right? They didn't even have a team. So that in itself is a problem. And we are not just talking about WaterAid here, and I know that we're talking about ourselves. So this is something that we must look into. And in cases where there's some organizations that would say, oh yeah, at least we have one communication officer, but you're growing bigger, you're doing much more work, and you have a lot more stories, Casey. You need to expand your team. Communication, like I said, and storytelling is an investment. So sticking to just one person and filling that person with all of the workload will also impede the impact of the work that the person has to do, right? So having a team is very important. And also having strategy, not just jumping out and doing things. If you also looked at it, it was said that when Kwame was writing the report, of course, he was only focused on all the amazing statistics in terms of the things that they had done, but nobody was thinking about the fact that they had issues. They had some issues with the borehole. These were stories that they could have told, but telling it from the perspective of these were challenges we encountered, but this is how we navigated it through it. What it does for the organization is that it tells people out there and even donors that this is a resilient organization who is actually dedicated to the impact, because there are a lot of people who have done good work and the work gets, I mean, so many people have built boreholes, but the boreholes never lasted. But for them, they went back, they ensured that it was fixed and it
for the day. But so far, do you want to put in the chat room what is like the key takeaway for you so far? What do you expect Omoye to come back to? What's your biggest takeaway from today's session? Yeah, someone says we should be strategic when telling impact story. Thank you. Another person says we can embrace storytelling. Okay, it's coming up real fast. We can embrace storytelling more, definitely. That's where we want you to get to. Intentionality in comms and messaging, yes, very, very important. So if you haven't been taking, this is the time to start. Remember, Omoye said you don't have to have a full-time staff. You could explore volunteering. There are people out there who have capacity and are willing to volunteer at most times no cost, or maybe what you just have to do is take care of the transportation. And they may have remote work days, or they don't even have to come to Fridays. So you can always maximize how you get people on board. Okay, somebody says, build a team, impact stories, not just success stories. Yes, impact, success, that's the difference now. So someone has learned here that beyond just stating the success stories, there may have been challenges along the way. There may have been conflicts along the way. I think it's okay to also put those out there and tell how you dealt with it, and then you come up with an impact story. Okay, Derek says storytelling framework is very important. Impact over success storytelling again. Yes, so having a framework, and do not be bamboozled by the word framework. It just simply means how do you want to tell your story? For example, how often do you want to tell your story? What channel do you want to use to tell your story? Or even how many channels? How do you want to tell the same story using different channels? So that's how you build a framework. And I'm sure you can even go online, search communication storytelling frameworks, templates, and you get many of them that you can adapt to your organization. Okay. Beyond expanding the team.
hear me.
Okay, I think this is a question. We'll take that when Omoye comes. So, yay, she's back.
My apologies.
All right. Okay, do you want to go ahead and continue?
Yes, please. I don't know what question you were responding to, but please, can you hear me?
Yeah, so I was asking people to share their takeaways, and that's what we were discussing.
Okay, so unfortunately, because I was thrown out, I'm not sure I can see anybody's comments anymore. But yes, the ones that are coming in, I can see. Yes. So yeah, story. I'm seeing all of our different comments, and I wanted to end on this note while I receive our questions. Right, just listening to everything that has been said today, from Adido's session to my session, you all know that I don't think it's. I need to overemphasize the fact that storytelling is an investment that is worth making. It goes beyond the numbers. I know that we're very, number driven. We want the numbers, but storytelling goes beyond the numbers. The impact it brings in terms of visibility, in terms of authenticity, it does a whole lot more for you as an organization. We know that a lot of people can pad numbers, but when people see the things that you're actually doing, then there's so little to argue with. All right. And so today, my conclusion or my message or my appeal to you today is to choose storytelling, choose storytelling, choose storytelling. All right. Thank you very much. Now I will take your questions. All right. I'll take your questions. Thank you for the for the feedback in the comment room. I'll take your questions. I've missed a number of questions. I've seen some that had come in, but if
Okay,
BB
you
could
go ahead
help
with a
me
few.
with that.
Yes.
Yes, thank
We'll
you.
start with this. How regularly should you send out your message, and what are the best channels for sending storytelling messages? How often, and what are the
How
best
regular,
ways?
how often? You should be telling your stories every day, right? So you should be telling your stories every day. But I know that, sometimes when we think of storytelling, we're thinking, oh, so do you mean I should be doing documentaries, all of these things every day? Of course not, right? If you looked at the excerpts that Adedoyin shared, that was just a short text that was written. That in itself is a story. That's a testimonial, right? So we now need to start thinking creatively rather of the different ways that we would tell our stories. You can tell stories with pictures. You can tell stories through excerpts. You can tell stories through testimonials. You can tell stories through short videos. You can tell stories through long videos. So you need to then know what you have to sit down and then plan out the different kinds of stories you can tell within your means, within your capacity and capability as a team, and then work it out. Your team isn't as strong. You can't start thinking of telling one massive documentary. You want to put out one massive documentary. You don't have the money. You don't have the skills. You don't have the team. You don't have the resources. So how about you look and think about the smaller stories or the smaller ways, not smaller stories, but the smaller ways or to tell and simpler ways to tell your stories. There are various ways that you can leverage to tell your story. So I think that you need to start working towards that and also make it a thing to tell your stories as often as possible, every day, every week. Tell you. Okay, so I was done with that question. I could go to the next
Oh,
question
you didn't hear me?
if there are.
Can you hear me now?
No, I didn't. I didn't hear anything you said.
Okay, my
I hear
question
you.
was on anonymity of our beneficiaries. Someone is asking, I guess they work with
Okay.
children. So if you want to tell stories involving children, how do you go about it, ensuring that they're protected?
Fantastic. I mean, yes, definitely you have to protect your beneficiaries in cases where it's a very sensitive story that has to be told. Either you're putting them out there as anonymous. We're currently working on one storytelling that we're with one of our grantees, and it's a sensitive thing. So we said, how about we use voices and we underlaid on, say, pictures or videos of the person, but maybe not showing the person's face, just the person walking from behind, right? You could do that. You could also put out excerpts and just make it anonymous. You could blur out faces. These are various things that you could do to keep your beneficiaries anonymous. Yes. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Another question is, how do people believe our stories without facts and figures? As a society, we're pretty empathy fatigued, and we've heard tough stories. So how do you stand out from other nonprofits with your stories?
So can I just say that we didn't say discard facts and figures. Facts and figures are very important, but weave them into your stories. All right. So even in your story, while you're putting out the numbers, you're also showing us what these numbers are, for lack of better words, right? So what do these numbers translate to? We're seeing the numbers. You're telling us these are the numbers, but we're seeing the impact in the pictures. We're seeing the impact in the voices of the beneficiaries. So we're not saying throw away the numbers. We want to know the numbers. We want to know that you're reaching this amount of people, right? However, do not just throw numbers alone at us. That's what we're saying. Weave your numbers into your stories. There are ways that you, in fact, it becomes affected. Tell us in your stories. All right. So there are ways that you have to weave in your impact numbers into your stories. That makes for even more powerful storytelling. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Omoye. Someone asked here, can you point us to sample frameworks and templates we can work with?
Thank you too. All right. AI is your friend and your ally. The internet, Google, all of these are allies that you have as communication professionals and storytellers, right? As much as I also would advocate that you do not go and copy verbatim, but AI has helped me a whole lot with storytelling, and I'm not going to hide it. However, you just have to be very creative. The good thing about AI is that you bring your creativity with the ideas that it shares, you modify it with your creativity, and you tell the most beautiful stories. So I may not be able to say, oh, these are frameworks that I want to give to you. Do this, do this, do this. It might not, what works for me might not work for you because your program, your project, your terrain is completely different from what I am doing. However, when you go online and you search out for some of these templates, you can tweak to suit what you're doing. But please, by all means, leverage all of the digital tools that have been made available to us in our time and age. They are very useful for storytelling.
All right, we have a question from Kyle. It says, my experience over the years, and I believe many comms folks face this, programs teams tend to leave comms out of their planning during interventions. Hence, comms tends to play catch up in storytelling. How can we better merge comms and programs into a strategic workforce?
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd say all the comms professionals here, you have to stand up for yourself. All right, you have to stand up and make your demands. So the year is starting and you're having your strategy session. You have to show up with your own strategy. You have to tell the different teams that you are going to be working with that these are the things that we expect from you. All right, and you have to follow through. So the programs people are thinking of their own things, right? You have to also, I mean, there are some very nice programs people like Bibi here who are also thinking of comms while they are doing their stuff here. But there are some people who are not thinking of communication. They're just thinking we need to achieve our program goals. Then you, as a communications person who also has his or her goals aligned with the overall goal of the organization, you're telling the different teams, the programs teams, the M&E team, right, that these are the things that we need from you. Work closely with them. You have to be on their case, right? My team members will tell you that I can sit on their case because I know I want to tell stories. I want to put things out there. So you have to work closely with them. You can't wait on them. You have to reach out to them. You have to try and build that synergy, that relationship, and make them understand the relevance of the work that you're doing. It might take some time, but you have to start doing it. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Destiny asks, what do I do? Excuse me, what do I do when I'm trying to tell pre-project story? Is it necessary to show the dirty state of the community before I start the project and then later show the transformation of the community through our work? Remember that thing about exploitation that you said we should avoid doing. So here we go. How do we deal with this?
Yeah. So there was a state that the community was in before it became dirty, right? And I think that you can project that. All right. So you can project. I'm not saying don't show some dirt. I'm not saying don't. How do we then know that there was a problem? All I'm saying is that you have to ensure that that's not all that you show. So you see some cases where we're talking about this poverty porn or dehumanizing people. All that we show is how horrible the state is. And that's all that there is. But for you, you can come from the perspective of this is how I used to know this community to be, or this is how Africa is supposed to look like. This is the idea I had growing up. This is the idea that every child had growing up. Yet this is, some of the challenges, but this is where we're taking it to. So you know that you have told us a story of what it used to look like, or what we've dreamt of it becoming, and then you're telling us that this is the journey that you're taking us on. I think that in itself makes me more interested in seeing my community become more beautiful. All right. So yes. I hope I answered your
Thank
question.
you very much. Thank you very much, Omoye. So this one other question says, can we tell stories normally after getting consent from parents of children?
Can we tell? Yeah, of course. I mean, once you
Stories
get
normally
consent,
after getting the consent
of course,
of
once you get consent,
parents.
but then also I think that you need to also think about when, yeah, there's some people who are not very educated in terms of some of the contents that we're getting. But once you see that whatever content you're putting out there puts your beneficiaries in danger, I think that even with the consent, you should be very interested in their well-being and protect them at all costs. So yes, thank you.
Okay, so because of time, we may not be able to take any more questions. We also do not want to keep you too long online. So before we close up, we would like to take pictures. If you do not mind turning on your cameras, if you can, just so that we document, who and who attended this training. So if you could please turn on your cameras. If you need to powder your nose, please go ahead and do so, and then we'll take pictures. Okay, we'll give a few seconds for that. Okay, for those asking how they will get the sessions, we will get back to you shortly. All right, are we ready to take a screenshot now?
Okay.
Okay, give us your best smile.
So say storytelling.
So we take this in batches. Yes, okay. We have a professional photographer, so just pose. That's all you need to do. All right, let me know once you are done, and then we'll go ahead and round up. Okay, a few seconds to go, and I tell you in a few minutes we'll be out of here. But we've got very, very important announcement for you, so please do not leave yet. Thank you. Are we good? Okay, thank you very much, our able photographer. So we are done with that. All right, just a few more announcements and we will be out of here. Remember, we told you about our podcast, ActPod, where we showcase change makers across Africa, people doing great stuff for Africa in Africa. We have our 36th episode running at the moment. It's on redefining masculinity, transforming the African boy child narrative with Ayodele Solomon, who is the founder of Voice Spotters. You can stream it on our YouTube page. You can also go to popular podcast platforms, Apple, Samsung, Google, and the rest. Yes, our breakfast dialogue is also coming up in the month of October, 22nd of October to be precise. And I tell you, it's going to be packed with insights. So please go ahead and register. You'll find our registration link on our social media platforms. It is also here. We'll put it in the comments, in the chat box for you to also register. Okay. Yes, so like we said, every other month we run trainings here. So today we have spoken about storytelling. In another 2 months, we're coming back to look at measuring what matters, unlocking, the art of impact assessment. So if you're an M&E official or you are related to an M&E official or your work requires that you, show your impact, please, you do not want to miss this training. It's coming up on the 19th of November and you will get more details as you follow us shortly. Yes, so when you log out at the end of this session, you'll see a feedback form that will pop up. Please ensure that you fill it. It helps us get better and better at what we do. Right about now, we're going to be having a closing remark from our very own HR and admin manager, Afe Buame Buworo, to come say thank you to you for your time. Over to you, Afe.
Oh, thank you, Bibi. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Good afternoon.
Yes, we can hear you. Good afternoon.
Oh, okay, thank you. So on behalf of ACT Foundation, I'd like to thank Ade Doyin, our speaker, and our very own Omoye for sharing their views on the act of storytelling. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. One of the things that Ade Doyin said that stuck, and I think that's how she concluded, was great stories can touch hearts, change minds, and create long-lasting impact. And I would like for everyone to just hold on to that as we all feel inspired to tell our stories with authenticity and purpose. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hopefully